Buenas tardes a todos. Qué bueno es contar con ustedes en este espacio virtual. Esperamos que se encuentren muy bien de salud. A nombre de la Asociación Mexicana de Especialistas en Nutrición Animal, les doy la más cordial bienvenida a este 13º Seminario de la Industria. Nos complace que la compañía DSM nuevamente haga uso de esta plataforma y el día de hoy estará tocando temas dirigidos a la ganadería de engorda. Los seminarios presentados con anterioridad han contado con un alto contenido técnico, por lo que podemos asegurar que este evento igualmente lo hará. El tema es perspectivas de las tecnologías de aditivos para el ganado de engorda en FEEDLOT, el cual será presentado por el doctor Vinicius Gouvêa, de la Universidad Estatal de Nuevo México. Muchas gracias, doctor Vinicius. El doctor Víctor Valerio es parte del equipo técnico para Latinoamérica de rumiantes de DSM y nos ofrecerá una semblanza de lo que esta compañía puede hacer en favor de la industria del ganado de engorda. Queremos expresar un profundo agradecimiento a DSM Nutritional Products por su intensa participación y gran entusiasmo ante estos seminarios de la industria. Contaremos con una excelente traducción simultánea, llevada a cabo por la doctora Lourdes Rivera, para la cual podrán acceder utilizando la herramienta de interpretación que está debajo de su pantalla. Este seminario será moderado por el doctor Juan de Dios Garza, quien además de ser parte del comité científico de AMENA y muy activo, es uno de los especialistas de mayor reconocimiento en nuestro país. Sin más, dejo el control con el doctor Víctor Valerio.
Hola a todos, muchas gracias por la atención. Yo soy Víctor Valerio, soy supervisor de innovación y ciencia aplicada para rumiantes de América Latina. Voy a hacer acá una traducción corta sobre Dr. Vinicius y también por la empresa, y ahí vamos a empezar con el gran contenido que Dr. Vinicius va a nos brindar hoy, que es sobre tecnologías de aditivos en feedlot. Bueno, primeramente hablando un poco de la DSM, que es la empresa. Bueno, primeramente hablando de las iniciales de la empresa, que es DSM, que significa estas iniciales, son de Dutch State Mines, del inglés. Eso se pasa porque la empresa empezó en 1902 como ahí una reserva de exploración de carbono y ha cambiado totalmente su negocio hasta hoy, que con el enfoque en vida y salud sostenible. Y hoy esas iniciales ya tienen otro significado, que es doing something meaningful, o sea, hacer algo significativo. ¿Y cómo pasó este cambio? Entonces, desde 1902, los negocios de la empresa se pasó por una minería de carbón y después por petroquímica, y hoy nuestro enfoque es principalmente en nutrición, salud animal y de humanos y también vidas sostenibles. La empresa está presente en todos los continentes globales con soluciones muy fuertes, principalmente en América Latina, que es el gran foco de nutrición y salud animal. Hablando un poco de los negocios, primeramente un punto muy importante es sostenibilidad de ciencias, y por eso tenemos ahí 100 alianzas con 500 marcas, con 2.000 facultades respaldadas, que ya he generado 2.500 patentes e innovaciones hasta hoy. Hablando ahí de gran foco de negocio, entonces es nutrición y salud humana y de animales, y clima y energía y recursos y circularidad. Entonces, tú puedes ver que nosotros estamos enfrentando los mayores desafíos ahí de la actualidad de la humanidad. Y para eso, claro, un valor muy fuerte es la ciencia, ¿no? Entonces, usamos las ciencias para crear soluciones, siempre con un guía de propósito motivado a un resultado que sea importante para todos. Bueno, un punto muy importante de la empresa fue 2013, que adquirió la marca Tortuga, una empresa líder en nutrición animal en Brasil, ahí con más de 67 años de nutrición y tradición de salud animal. Entonces, hoy la marca de DSM para nutrición de rumiantes es Tortuga, que cuenta ahí con toda la larga experiencia por lo largo de casi 70 años en Brasil. Y acá se puede mirar todas las áreas de los negocios y facturaciones. Entonces, ve aquí que acá principalmente os negócios de nutrição, cuidados personales de humanos, também acá materiales sostenibles, pero o importante é que o maior negócio é nutrição e saúde animal. Acá em azul se pode mirar que 32% da faturação, que hoje se queda alrededor de 2,8 milhões de euros, é fuente de nutrição e saúde animal. Então, o tema que vamos falar hoje é sumamente importante. Bueno, me gostaria então de apresentar o Dr. Vinicius. Dr. Vinicius, por favor, pode compartilhar sua pantalla, mientras eu hablo pouco de tu biografia. Dr. Vinicius é médico veterinário, tem maestria e doutorado em nutrição e produção animal na Universidade de São Paulo, em Brasil. Vinicius é trabalhado em la indústria animal em uma empresa global aí por 3 anos com desenvolvimento de produtos e também sido uma experiência em la Universidade de Ohio e também de Florida, Estados Unidos, como investigador visitante e atualmente é professor e investigador em New Mexico State University, com atuações aí principalmente em nutrição, saúde de ganaderia de FEEDLOT. Então, bem-vindo, Dr. Vinicius, por favor, adelante.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here to talk about this important topic that is feed additive for finishing beef cattle. As Victor mentioned, I'm a beef nutritionist. I've been working with feedlot nutrition for like several years. And the focus of my research program here at New Mexico State University is feedlot nutrition and health. So basically, I'm trying to adjust diet formulation to improve animal health, especially for newly received feedlot calves. And we are doing that by like different ways. I'm using different management prats, different diet formulations, and of course, feed additives. So before we start, we might need to think a little bit, what is the importance of feed additives for finishing beef cattle? Why different universities, different professors, different companies are looking for feed additives, why they're like spending money to develop different feed additives for beef cattle. So basically, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, global population should grow more than 30% from 2008 to 2050. And more than 2/3 of this populational growth should happen in urban areas, but it's gonna reduce the workforce in the field. And to support all this growth, this populational growth, we should increase food production in more than 70%. That means that we need to produce more meat, more milk, and more grains to feed all these people. And the question is, can we sustainably feed a world population of 11 billion people? And the answer for that question is, based on our like current estimates, is yes, we can, but we might need to use different technologies to increase productivity. More than 90% of this increase in food production should come from like intensification. That means that we need to produce more in the same area or a little bit extra area. And we have, when we talk about feed additives, we have different ways to increase productivity. As you probably know, in the past few years, we had a lot of improvement in genetics, in the genetics of animals that we are feeding, especially for like the use of artificial insemination and increasing expected progeny difference. We have very good improvements in the medicines and drugs that we can use to reduce morbidity and mortality in feedlot cattle. We have different management and prats and equipments that we can use to support all the operation. We also have different processing methods and storage methods, conservation methods to increase productivity. We're using different tools of artificial intelligence to support decision-making. And of course, we also have different feed additives that can be used to improve ruminal fermentation and also intestinal digestion. And this is going to be the main focus of this presentation. So my objective here today is to present some information on feed additives for feedlot cattle. I'm going to show you different research projects, different manuscripts, and that can highlight the main points when we talk about feed additives. So to start, I'm going to show you this manuscript published in 2011 by Coprider and others. And basically what they did here in this project, they evaluate different feed additive strategies and feedlot efficiency, especially when we talk about greenhouse gas emissions and sustainability. So basically these authors, they evaluated two different feeding strategies for finishing feedlot cattle. The first treatment group was called Never Ever, and that means that animals in this group, they didn't receive any antibiotic or growth promoters, such as feed additives or implants, from weaning to slaughter. And in contrast, in the other group, the conventional group, animals were fed diets containing feed additives and implants. So basically, this treatment was designed to represent the current feeding practice used by the feedlot industry. So animals in this group, they were implanted at the beginning and at day 70 of the trial. They were fed the same basal ration containing monenzin and Tylen, and also ractopamine in the last 29 days on feed. So for this project, they used 104 Angus crossbred steers, initial body weight 337 kilograms from the same commercial ranch. They ranked these animals by shrunk body weight and sort them in the pens. 4 pens per treatment, total of 8 pens, 13 animals per pen, and 52 animals per treatment. And these animals were fed the traditional finishing diet containing 90% alfalfa hay, 77.5% steam flaked corn, some byproduct 4%, distiller's grain, and some fat. Overall composition was 13% crude protein, 16% NDF, and 5.5% fat. So what they observed was, so you can see the first table, and to help you to see the data, I just create these graphs. They bring the same information that we have here in the table. So you can see that animals fed the conventional, animals in the conventional group, they tended to have greater final body weight, 9 kilograms, and that was because they had 34% increase in the average daily gain compared with the Never Ever group. Again, the Never Ever group didn't have any feed additive or implant or anything in their diet from weaning to slaughter. Days on feed, you can see that animals fed in the conventional group, they had 42 days less on feed. That means 22% significant difference. And the total feed per head during the project was 23% lower for calves in the conventional group. Feed efficiency was 33% greater for the calves in the conventional group compared with the Never Ever, significant again. And the cost of feed plus technology per kilogram of gain was 17% lower for animals in the conventional group compared with the Never Ever. So when we think about the production and the performance, we got good results using these different technologies. And they also evaluate the sustainability aspect of the project through the methane emission. So basically, if we check the methane emission, grams of methane per steer per day, there's no difference between the treatments. So if there's no difference, if we consider assuming that we have a constant emission rate in a dry matter intake basis, basically the conventional group had 31% less methane emission compared with the Never never ever strategy. So these authors, they concluded that there's a positive economic and environmental outcomes from using different technology in the feedlot. We might need to consider that there's some people that want to buy something, some meat that comes from the never ever approach. So they can, sometimes people can pay more. And that also should be considered in all this calculation. So, but anyway, I think the message was, yeah, we can increase productivity and produce meat in a more sustainable way using different feed additives and technology. So let's talk about these different feed additives that we can use in the feedlot industry. So basically, this is a very overall classification for the feed additives. So we have different groups. We have antibiotics, we have probiotics or direct feed microbial products, such as yeast and bacteria. We also have essential oils, enzymes, and mycotoxin binders. But for this specific presentation, I'm going to focus on antibiotics and essential oils. So basically, feed additives are products that there's no nutritional value, used in animal nutrition for purpose of improving animal health and the efficiency of nutrient use, increase growth rate, and decrease environmental impact in cattle production. They have different mode of actions. They can improve energy metabolism efficiency. They can improve protein metabolism efficiency. Some of them can control rumen pH and decrease the metabolic disorders. And some of these feed additives can increase immune response. In summary, the idea of using these different kind of feed additives is to improve animal performance, decrease the risk of digestive disorders, and decrease environmental impact. And that can give the producers a great net profit. So this is why we're using different feed additives. So for this specific presentation, I'm going to focus on antibiotics and essential oils. There's a lot of information on antibiotics, and now we also have some information on essential oils. So when we talk about antibiotics, we're going to talk about ionophores, especially monenzin, and non-ionophores, such virginomycin. And throughout my presentation, I'm going to show you some results with essential oils. There's a lot of different essential oils, so we're going to talk a little bit about some of these oils. Just to give you a perspective about ionophores that we have been using feedlot industry. So this is like a review of literature that I did. Basically what I did here, I went to the Journal of Animal Science and I searched for monenzin and ruminant. And this is pretty much the number of manuscripts that were published since 1973 until 2017. So you can see that there's a lot of information. Of course, there's there's some manuscripts on beef cattle, some in dairy cattle, some in small ruminants, some in vitro trials. But the idea is to show you that we have, on average, more than 15 manuscripts every year on monenzin, the most common ionophore used in the feedlot diets. And there's a lot of information between 1982 and 1989. And this can provide you an idea like how consistent we can see information on the mode of action. We have a lot of information on ruminal fermentation, methane emission, feedlot performance. We also have information of using ionophore for grazing cattle and dairy cattle. So I'm not going to go through all the details on mode of action and all these topics. So my idea is to show you some important information about monenzin. So I'm going to start bringing this manuscript that is basically was published in 2012. And in this manuscript, they evaluated the effects of monenzin, the dose of monenzin on VFA in cattle-fed high-grain finishing diets. So basically, this was a systematic review of literature. They used 16 studies from 1976 to 2009, and the criteria for the study selection were that the experiment involved beef cattle. Monenzing was the treatment comparable against the control group, and the basal diet had at least 80% of concentrate. So they end up with 58 treatment means used in this specific review. So here we have the mean average dose of monenzing that was 30.9 milligrams per kilogram of dry matter, and the mean dry matter intake for the cattle in this project was 7.8 kilograms of dry matter a day. Mean treatment period was 42 days. And here in these graphs, you can see there's like one graph for propionate, one for acetate, and one for butyrate. And you can see the first thing that I want to highlight is like you can see these red dashed lines here. So most of the information available was using monenzing from 0 to 40 milligram per kilogram of dry matter. And they observed that increasing the dose of monenzing, they increased the average concentration of propionate, decreased acetate, and butyrate. We can see a lot of variation in butyrate, some small variation here in propionate, and the most consistent result was decreasing acetate. So they concluded that the mean dose of monenzing was 30.9 milligrams per kilogram of dry matter, and the dose, average dose, they range from 0 to 40 milligrams per kilogram of dry matter. So some caution should be used applying the equations they developed for greater dose, and the changes in VFA profile were dose dependent. And that the monenzing should not be ignored when considering beef cattle data in modeling rumen fermentation profile. But no change in the total VFA was evident in this specific review of literature. So the second manuscript that I'm going to show you on monenzing for feedlot cattle was published again in 2012. And this was a meta-analysis on the effect of monenzing on feed efficiency and body weight gain and dry matter intake. So pretty much like in the first review, we saw like the effects on rumen fermentation, and here we are going to see the effects on performance. So again, they did a systematic review of literature, and they used the keywords monenzing in cattle, monenzing and heifer, or monenzing and steer to search for this manuscript. They didn't include any data restriction, and they used 40 peer-reviewed articles and 24 trial reports published between 1972 and 2010. Again, the criteria for the study selection was that the trial was conducted using beef cattle, and monenzing was the treatment comparable against the control group. Papers and reports must have been conducted on weaned growing or finishing beef cattle, and either like steers or heifers were included in this analysis, but bulls and cows were excluded. And another criteria for selection, inclusion or exclusion, was that the data should contain mean and a measure of dispersion, or like a p-value. So they use it for this specific review, a total of 64 papers and reports containing 169 trials with monenzing and performance outcomes. So the mean dose of monenzing in this review was 28.1 milligrams per kilogram of feed, with a range of 3 to 98 milligrams. So pretty close to the last to the last review that was 30.1. So we got in this review 28.1. And but you can see that although the dose of Monens ranged from 3 to 98, you can see in this graph that most of the data set was from 3 to 40 milligrams per kilogram of dry matter, pretty much what we saw in the last manuscript. So in this table, you can see the difference in feed efficiency, dry matter intake, average daily gain, and this is another way to report feed efficient gain, kilograms of gain per kilogram of body weight. So this is the change compared with the control group, no feed additive. So we just talk about the dose. So again, so this is the average dose, and in this slide, they're gonna using like the average dose. So all the manuscript, all the dose are included here. So from 3 to 40 milligrams per kilogram. So we can see that there's a statistical difference here. So that change feed conversion in 6.4, dry matter intake was reduced in 3.1% compared with the control, no feed additive, no monenzing. Average daily gain was increased 2.5%, and kilograms of gain per kilogram of body weight gain was increased 1.3%. Another interesting information from this manuscript was when you like sort all the data by year, you can see like here from 1970s to 1980s to 2000. So you can see the mean dose of monenzing usually like increase, and this is changing feed efficiency throughout the years. So you can see that and this is like kind of interesting. The change in feed efficient tend to decrease throughout the year. So 1970s, we got like almost 8%, 8.1% change in feed efficiency. And here 1980s, we got like 6.4, and then that decreased to 2.3 and 3.5 in 2000, or 2000 to 2010. So, and the authors, they mentioned that maybe that was like, it's unknown if that was because of the generic improvement of our animals, of some microbial resistance. So this is like unclear. But later on in 2012, so we have also some authors mentioning that maybe because we're feeding different diets from 1970s to 2000, 2010. So the diets that we fed for this finishing cattle, they change a lot from 1970 to 2000, 2010. So maybe there's another point that we might need to consider, and not only generic method or antimicrobial resistant, maybe it's just like the diets that we're feeding for this cattle. And so in this manuscript, what they did was they were trying to evaluate different doses of monenzing for finishing diets containing corn co-products. So the idea behind this project was because we are increasing distiller's grain in these finishing diets, we can increase sulfur as well, and that can increase the risk of polyencephalomalacia. And the hypothesis was maybe like increasing monenzing could decrease the hydrogen sulfide gas and increase propionate. So basically what they did, they used a different dose of monenzing from 0, 22, 33, and 44 milligrams per kilogram of dry matter in finishing diets contain 60% dry distiller's grains plus solubles, 10% rolled corn, and 10% corn silage. So basically they used like 8 Angus cross ruminant cannulated steers in a replicated Latini square design, and there's 3 different doses of monenzing plus the control group, no monenzing. And what they observed was no difference was detected for concentration, ruminal concentration of acetate propionate or acetate propionate ratio, or even for total VFA. So monenzin didn't decrease regardless the dose, didn't decrease hydrogen sulfate here, didn't affect dry matter intake or ruminal fermentation characteristics. So that is like somehow in agreement with the last review of literature that show us that we're seeing like some decrease in the benefits of using monenzin in these finishing dyes. So let's move for virginomycin, and we can and I'm going to show you this manuscript. Basically, this was published in 2014, and in this project they compared monenzin and virginomycin for finishing beef cattle. So pretty much what they did was they used 135 crossbred steers, and initial body weight was 257 kilograms in a 145 days trial. So they used 27 pens and 5 steers per pen, and treatments were control group, no feed additive, monenzin 34 milligrams per kilogram of dry matter, a little bit higher than the average of the review of literature that we just saw, and virginomycin at 26 milligrams per kilogram of dry matter. So the dyes they used had 6% alfalfa hay and 6% Sudan grass hay, average 62.85% steam flaked corn and some distiller's grain. Not that high as we saw in the last project with 60%. So here they used like 15%, some yellow grease, and that gave us 14.5% crude protein diet and 7% fat. What they observed here was, so this is like the first contrast, and they contrast the control group against the feed additives. So this is the average of monenzin and virginomycin, and here we have monenzin against virginomycin. So basically, this is gonna answer the question, did the feed additives work? And this is gonna be like, which one was the best feed additive, monenzin or virginomycin? So we can see that there's no difference between the feed additives for final body weight, average daily gain, dry matter intake, feed efficiency, or the net energy for maintenance and gain. But the feed additives, regardless the type, regardless if it's like monenzin or virginomycin, they increased the average daily gain, tended to increase average daily gain, and increased feed efficiency and the net energy value for the diets. When we look at the carcass data, so again, feed additives didn't, when we compare monenzin with virginomycin, there's no difference in carcass weight, dressing percentage, or fat. We saw like a small difference here in marbling. Virginomycin increased marbling score, but in overall, we didn't observe like great differences between monenzin and virginomycin. But again, when we check the effect of feed additives, and again, here we have monenzin and virginomycin together compared with the control group. So we did observe an increase in carcass weight. And yeah, this is everything that we saw, an increase in carcass weight. This is the effect, the treatment effect on ruminal fermentation characteristics. So again, no effects when we compare monenzin and virginomycin, but when we compare the control group against the feed additives, monenzin, the average of monenzin and virginomycin, we can see an increase in ruminal pH and in the total VFA production. So this is good. So that tells us that the feed additives can be added to the finishing diets to improve performance of feedlot cattle. So now I'm going to show you a different research project, and this was conducted to evaluate, to compare monensin, virginomycin, and flavomycin, and diets contain holy corn. So they use it in this project, 100 bulls, initial body weight, 392 kilograms, finishing diets containing 85% holy corn, and 15% pellet, a concentrate pellet contain like trace minerals and vitamins and some protein. And so they use it 5 bulls per pen and 4 pens per treatment. And here they evaluated the effects of monensin. So we don't have a control group without the feed additive, without any feed additive. So in this manuscript, the monensin was the control group. And they also like had a same basal diet with virginomycin, 25 milligrams per kilogram, the combination of monensin and virginomycin, flavomycin, and monensin at 20 milligrams per kilogram of dry matter, and flavomycin 2.2 milligrams per kilogram of dry matter. So basically, when they combined monensin and flavomycin, they decreased the dose to half of the concentration that they used for monensin alone or flavomycin alone. This author didn't detect any difference between the feed additives, and this is pretty much like consistent with what we saw in the last manuscript. So no difference were detected for dry matter intake or any of the growth performance data or carcass characteristics. So pretty much like consistent with the last manuscript. So again, no difference in intake and digestibility, and no difference observed in ruminal fermentation characteristic as well. Okay, so overall, what we saw using different antibiotics, monensin, and especially virginomycin, was, yes, we can see like benefits from using these feed additives, but in overall, there's no difference between these feed additives or the combination of these feed additives. Okay, so let's move to the essential oils, and to show you, to give you a better perspective of like how we are when we talk about essential oils. I did the same thing that I did for monensin. So I went to the Journal of Animal Science and I searched for essential oils and ruminants. And again, here we can see in the green bars, so I keep the monensin data set here. So it's the blue bar, same thing that you saw before in the previous slide. And I added the essential oils here. So different from monensin, you're gonna see that information on essential oil, they start showing up in 1997. And this is like the Journal of Animal Science only. And again, what I searched for was essential oils and ruminants. And this is gonna include beef cattle, dairy cattle, some small ruminants, and in vitro projects. So again, you can see that we started with some information on essential oils and ruminants in 1997. So it's not, so we still do not have all the information that we have for monensin, but in like 10 years, we increased a lot the number of research on essential oils. So different universities and different companies are like starting looking at different essential oils, and probably in the future we are gonna have like a lot of information like we have for monensin. When we talk about essential oils, we already have some review of literature. So we have one review of literature from 2008, and there's another one from 2013. So they try to put together all this information since 1997. By definition, essential oils are a group of plant secondary metabolites obtained from volatile fractions of plants that also has antimicrobial properties. The point that we should highlight when we talk about essential oil is, and in this table, you can see that there's a lot of different kind of essential oils, and there's like, these are different manuscripts published between 2008, 6, or even 2006 until 2011. And you can see that we have like projects on small ruminants, beef and dairy. And you can see that it's kind of like hard to know like the effect of a single essential oil, because most of these projects, they evaluated the combination of essential oils. So here you can see like garlic oil in this manuscript, and here you can see like cinnamon oil, and this is like a combination of eugenol, limonene, and vanillin. So it's hard, like different from monenzin, that we have a lot of information and from like a single feed additive. When we talk about essential oils, we still have a lot of information of combination of essential oils. So we still cannot build a strong data set on one single essential oil, because most of the research projects and research was conducted using a combination of essential oils. So I'm gonna bring you the information on the specific combination of essential oils that I had the opportunity to run some projects. And this is the first manuscript from 2019. So you're gonna see that they were published like in recent years. And basically in this project, they evaluated different feed additives and combination of feed additives, combination of essential oils. In this specific project, they used 300 finishing cattle. Initial body weight was 330 kilograms. They used 50 pens, total of 50 pens, 10 pens per treatment, and 5 to 7 animals per pen. Total feeding period was 93 days. The basal TMR, the basal ration, was composed by 8.5% sugarcane bagasse and 82.5% ground corn, some soybean meal, and urea. And treatments were monenzin, 26 milligrams per kilogram of dry matter. Essential oil, they used this was the commercial product, 90 milligrams per kilogram of dry matter, Rina. And they also evaluated the combination of monenzin and the blend of essential oils. They tried to use a combination of the blend of essential oil and one exogenous alpha amylase, and also the combination of essential oil, alpha amylase, and a protease in this finishing ration. So this is the data during the first 27 days after the adaptation period. So again, just to make it easier for you to see the numbers, in overall, they didn't observe any benefits of combining the blend of essential oil with monenzin or adding the amylase and the protease to the blend of the essential oil. So the benefits were observed for the blend of essential oil and the blend of the essential oil combined with the exogenous enzyme. So you're gonna see that compared with monenzin, the combination of the blend of essential oil and amylase increased the average daily gain during the 27 first days of the finishing period. And the blend was like intermediate here between monenzin and the blend combined with the exogenous alpha amylase. This is the body weight, so increased the average daily gain, and the body weight was increased as well. Same thing, compared with monenzin, the combination of the blend and the exogenous alpha amylase increased the final body weight at the end of the 27 days. And the blend was like intermediate here. Dry matter intake also increased compared with monenzing. So even like the blend of essential oil and the combination of the blend with the exogenous alpha amylase increased the intake. And this is the data for the entire finishing period. So you can see here 93 days feeding period, average date again, like for the adaptation period increased, the average date again increased when we compare monenzing against the blend and the alpha amylase. And the blend here again, intermediate between monenzing and this combination. And feed efficiency didn't change. So although we observed an increase in the dry matter intake, the increase in average date again can compensate that increase in dry matter intake, and feed efficiency was like similar between the treatments. So this is like hot carcass weight. They did observe a difference between monenzing and the combination of the blend of essential oil and alpha amylase. And again, the blend alone was like intermediate here. And what we observed during like the metabolism, that the amount of starch digested, the total tract was increased when we combined the blend of essential oil and the exogenous alpha amylase compared with the animals that were fed the diets containing monenzing. For nitrogen intake, because we increased the dry matter intake and the diets had the same crude protein, so basically the nitrogen intake was greater for the combination. And the amount of nitrogen absorbed was also increased when we compared the combination of the blend of essential oils and exogenous alpha amylase with monenzing. So this is probably what can explain the increase in performance, especially in carcass production. So this is another project using the same combination of essential oils. This was an abstract published, I think, last year during the same conference that we're doing now. And this project was to conduct this project. They used 240 crossbreed heifers. Initial body weight was 282 kilograms. Only 2 treatments and 10 replicates per treatments. So they used one basically monenzing, 26 milligrams per kilogram, and the same blend of essential oils. And the diet had 8% hay, 70% steam flaked corn. So basically, the result was very consistent with what we saw in the last research project. So when we compared with monenzing, the combination of essential oils increased the dry matter intake, but also increased the average date again, that end up with no difference in feed efficiency. And again, they observed an increase in hot carcass weight. One of the things that when we used this kind of blend of essential oil and the alpha amylase, so we thought that maybe changing the processing method, the corn processing method, could change the way that this combination would affect the performance of this cattle. So what we evaluated in this project was the same combination of the blend and the exogenous alpha amylase with 2 different corn processing methods. So basically we used for this project 256 finishing beef cattle. Initial body weight was 360 kilograms. And we used it in this project 48 pens, 12 pens per treatment, 5 to 6 animals per pen. Same kind of diet, 8.5% of sugarcane bagasse, 82.5% of flint ground corn. And here we use two different particle size, medium or coarsely ground corn with the two different feed additives. So basically a 2x2 factorial arrangement. So medium ground corn was pretty much 1.66 millimeters, and coarsely ground corn was 2.12 millimeters average particle size. So in this project, we did observe a tendency for effect of particle size, but for feed additives, and you can see here the average for monenzin or that same combination of the blend and the exogenous alpha amylase. So you can see like an increase in dry matter intake, pretty much like what we were observing in the last two trials. But here in this project, we didn't observe any difference in average state again, although the feed efficiency didn't change between the two feed additives. So basically, this small numerical increase in average state again could compensate the lack of difference in feed efficiency. But we observed like an interaction between corn particle size and feed additive for hot carcass weight. So when we fed medium ground corn, so no effect of feed additives were observed. But for like animals fed coarsely ground corn, we did observe the same response from the last two trials. So we did observe like an increase in hot carcass weight. And again, similar to what we observed in the last research projects, we did observe here an increase in the amount of nitrogen absorbed for animals fed coarsely ground corn that can in part partially explain the results that we observed, the increase in carcass production again. So from these three research projects, we thought that maybe could exist a cross-feeding effect between microorganisms that could digest roughage fiber and those microorganisms that could digest starch. So we hypothesized that maybe different roughage source could interact with the feed additive and affect animal performance in different ways. So in these projects, we evaluated the combination, again, two different feed additives, monenzin and the combination of essential oils and exogenous alpha amylase, and two different roughage sources. So we used it in this project, corn silage and sugarcane bagasse, and we hypothesized that maybe like because we have let's say better roughage source when we use corn silage, because of the NDF composition is a little bit better for like corn silage, maybe using the combination of essential oils and exogenous enzyme could benefit animals fed with corn silage. So in this project, we use 88 finishing cattle. Initial body weight was 359 kilograms. Different from the other project, we use individual intake in this project. Feeding period was 108 days. And again, we used two different feed additives, monenzin, same dose, 26 milligrams per kilogram, and the combination of essential oils and exogenous enzyme. And each feed additive was combined with one of these two roughage sources, corn silage or sugarcane bagasse. Different of what we were expecting, we didn't observe any interaction between roughage source and the feed additives. We did observe an effect for feed additives in the final body weight. So animals fed the combination of feed additives increased the average date again and the final body weight. And again, hot carcass weight was also increased for animals fed the combination of feed additives and exogenous enzyme. We did also observe an effect of roughed source. So dry matter intake was lower for sugarcane bagasse, but no difference in feed efficiency was observed between the two roughed source. Again, no interaction between the feed additives and a roughed source for ruminal fermentation characteristics. But we did observe an effect of feed additive for acetate and propionate. So basically, the combination compared with monenzing, this combination of feed additives, essential oils, and exogenous enzyme, and decreased acetate and tended to increase propionate. Ammonium nitrogen was decreased for those animals fed the combination of essential oils and exogenous enzyme. More recently, and this is like an abstract published this year at the annual meeting of the annual meeting of American Society of Animal Science, we were trying to see the effect of using different feed additives on rumen pH of these cattle-fed high-concentrate diets. In this project, we used 24 crossbred Angus Nelore bulls, 3 treatments, and 8 replicates per treatment. In this project, animal was the experimental unit, and we used 105 days feeding period. Treatments were monenzing, same dose we used before, 26 milligrams per kilogram of dry matter. The combination of essential oil and 1 extra treatment contained the same combination of essential oil and exogenous alpha amylase and vitamin D, 25-hydroxyvitamin D. The diets were, the basal diet was composed by 10% sugarcane bagasse and 77% of ground corn. On average, we observed that the mean ruminal pH was increased when we compare the blend, the combination of feed additives and monenzing. The minimum pH was also affected by the treatment. So you can see that the minimum pH was a little bit higher for animals fed the combination of feed additives compared with monenzing. And of course, the maximum pH was also affected. So you can see the area under the curve, when we check the pH, the time that these animals had pH lower than 6.2 was also lower for the combination of feed additives. So they spend like less time with lower pH. Yeah, so this is pretty much what I brought for this presentation today. And as a take-home message, I would say that we can use different feed additives to increase growth performance and avoid digestive problems. We might need to consider like the cost benefits of using different feed additives. There's no way to, because we have different feeding systems and different diets and different formulations, it's hard to have one specific feed additives that can feed in different scenarios. So yeah, we might need to check and see the economic benefits of each feed additive. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and I'm gonna be open for questions and interaction. So thank you, everyone.
Muchas gracias, excelente exposición y bastantes datos, mucho que digerir y rumiar. Sin embargo, hay varias expectativas respecto a los aditivos. Creo yo que una de las cosas que deberíamos de preguntar es, actualmente existe una tendencia mundial al uso de los aditivos, sobre todo antibióticos combinados, ¿no? No sé si nos puedas elaborar un poco al respecto, cuáles son tus impresiones sobre esto, puesto que, por ejemplo, en México, en realidad, hay ya alguna legislación donde no puedes utilizar 2 o 3 aditivos en conjunto en las dietas del ganado. Entonces, si nos pudieras elaborar algo al respecto, Vinicius, sería excelente. Y ahorita doy paso a otras 2 preguntas que ya se tienen aquí.
Okay, Juan, so let me answer the first question. Can I go ahead and answer your first question? Can you hear me, Juan? So, yeah, so let me go ahead and answer the first question. Yeah, there's like a tendency for increase the use of like natural compounds. As I said, there's like some specific markets that are trying to avoid the use of antibiotics in the diets. I don't know how close we are from like avoiding this kind of feed additive in these finishing diets. What we can see is we have a lot of information on ionophores and non-ionophores in feedlot diets, and I think we are very like consistent in this research project. So again, I don't know how close we are from avoiding use of ionophore in finishing diets, but we have a very good, a strong data set that can support a decision in the field if we're gonna choose like this feed additive or that or not. And when we think about essential oils or natural compounds, we still are like building the database, and because we have different essential oils, different combination, there's a lot of companies working with different combinations. That is probably we probably need more time to know and build like a strong data set of one specific combination, or maybe the industry can start working with this and try to bring more information that can help us to make a decision which each kind of feed additive or combination of these natural compounds we can use. Does that answer your question?
Gracias. Aquí hay una pregunta de David Uribe que dice que muchas gracias por la información y hay estudios que evalúan el uso de L-carnitina en corral de engorda. ¿Tienes algo de información sobre esto?
Yeah, again, I think there's just a few information on this specific feed additive. I don't have a lot of experience with this specific feed additive. Yeah, so I might need to check if like we have like scientific information on L-carnitine for finishing cattle.
Ok, también hay otra pregunta de David Pacheco donde dice, lo puso en inglés, lo voy a decir en inglés para ver si me lo entiende mejor. Dice, use of antibiotics and implants surely cannot be sustainable in the long term. For example, the use of antibiotic resistance.
Yeah, so let me see if I understand this question. So the question is if using like the combination of implant and antibiotics can be sustainable or not in the long term. Is that the question?
Sí, básicamente, yo pienso aquí en esta pregunta que es bien importante conocer tu punto de vista porque todavía existe en la percepción del público, sobre todo aquellos que son de los que abogan mucho por el bienestar animal, de la cuestión de la resistencia de los antibióticos. Yo en lo personal pienso que, por ejemplo, monencina sódica, pues sí es un antibiótico, pero no se usa en humanos. Entonces, pues ahí hay una cosa que a lo mejor el público no ha entendido o nosotros como científicos en Animal Science no hemos sido capaces de explicarles a las autoridades. No sé qué piensas tú al respecto.
Yeah, we have some information. Let's just like bring some information on antimicrobial resistant in like soil, for example. We have some professors working on this specific topic, and yeah, maybe we can in a long term, maybe we can see some like antimicrobial resistance. I don't know, but I don't know if we can say that the combination of like antibiotics and implants, I mean, again, the antibiotics that we are using in the feedlot industry, I don't think we can say that they're not sustainable, because I mean, it's hard to define sustainability. And when we think in the amount of feed that we're using to feed these calves, the time that we spend to feed these cattle, so like the technology that we have available now can help us to save like time, resource, and also like avoid methane emissions. So I wouldn't say that they're not sustainable, because sustainable is a very like broad expression. And maybe if you have like a different perspective, maybe that is not that sustainable for you. But like according to the data that we have from the production science side, amount of feed that we usually use, carcass production, daily gain, methane emission, that is something that we might need to consider, because we definitely can improve feedlot production, meat production using these feed additives.
Okay. Related to the first question, I'm gonna say it in English again.
Mm-hmm.
This is David Pacheco again. He says, my comment is that it's risky to say that the antibiotics and implants are the way to sustainable production. Europe has ruled them out. We need to think of other options.
Yeah. The question is like more his point of view, and yeah, I agree. We're looking for, this is what I try to bring here today. So we're looking for alternative feed ingredients. Let's say there's like different universities, different professors looking for alternative feed additives, different industry looking for like probiotics, essential oils. So yeah, I think we might need to consider alternative feed ingredients and feed additives. And but again, using the technology that we have available now, such as like ionophore implants, and that can help us a lot to produce more meat and save a lot of resource.
En ese mismo sentido, realmente ese es el origen de esta plática. El uso de aceites esenciales ya tiene mucho tiempo en Europa, en donde no usan ionóforos. Entonces, el explorar otras alternativas como la que nos está exponiendo Vinicius, pues es muy interesante. En lo particular, yo he visto en pruebas no tan controladas datos que me llaman mucho la atención, que son muy similares. El año pasado yo realicé una prueba con aceites esenciales y vitamina D3, y la diferencia en kilos en canal fue de alrededor de 10 kilos comparado contra un control que tenía monencina solamente. Es una cosa interesante porque estas son y representan opciones bastante viables como para utilizarse en lugar de algunos antibióticos.
Yeah.
De la misma manera, quisiera yo preguntar algún resultado que tengan ustedes sobre el efecto de la alfa-amilasa, pero con dietas con grano procesado.
Yeah, what we have so far is like we have different, my experience in that this is like what I'm aware, is like different processing methods when we talk like medium ground corn or coarsely ground corn. So it's basically like corn particle size and the combination of essential oils and exogenous alpha amylase. So yeah, this is what I tried to show you in that project that we did, and you observed that for like coarsely ground corn, the combination of feed additives can increase performance, but for like medium ground corn, we didn't observe any difference. Yeah. And I think like if
Pero me refiero a proceso como rolado o hojueleado.
Okay, steam flaked corn.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't have any information on this project. I think there's one research project that was conducted, I think, at Texas A&M, and they didn't observe any difference between two different flake densities and exogenous alpha amylase. So I think what they did at that time was like decreasing the flake density and including the exogenous alpha amylase to see if that could increase or affect animal performance. But I don't think they detect any difference when they look at for like two different flake densities and the exogenous alpha amylase. Yeah.
Gracias. Aquí hay una pregunta de Javier Alba. Dice, por un lado se niega el efecto ambiental negativo del metano.
So sorry, Juan, can you repeat the question?
Ok, por un lado se niega el efecto ambiental negativo del metano producido por el ganado, y por otro se recomienda el uso de aditivos para evitarlo y ayudar al cuidado del ambiente. ¿Piensas que esto es contradictorio en la industria ganadera?
Yeah, so I don't know if I understood this question. So basically, like the question was, we are trying to reduce methane emission. Is that what he's saying? And like in the other side, we are trying to avoid ionophores. Is that the question?
Ok, pues no sé si queda contestada la pregunta. Si no queda contestada la pregunta, con gusto, si tienen algún otro comentario.
No, I didn't I didn't understand the question. Could you repeat the last question?
En esencia, lo que dice esta persona, Javier Alba, dice, por un lado, se usa o se habla del efecto negativo del metano, y por otro lado se recomiendan aditivos para evitarlo. Y con esto cuidar el ambiente. Entonces dice, ¿piensas que esto es contradictorio en la industria ganadera?
Yeah, actually, like we are trying to do is to increase meat production and decrease methane emission. This is like what most of these research projects they're looking for, some way to associate meat production and a reduction in the methane emission. So most of like the strategies, the feeding strategies, they're looking for like to balance between increasing meat production and also decrease methane emission. Yeah.
Okay. Aquí hay una pregunta de Víctor Monterrosa. Voy a tratar de explicar un poquito porque creo que ya Vinicius explicó algo sobre esto, sin embargo, la voy a leer. Dice, se puede decir que en las dietas modernas de finalización del corral de engorda, la monencina es menos eficaz que en las dietas de los años 70 y 80. ¿Se deberá una resistencia a la molécula? Saludos. Antes de que conteste, y yo creo que eso lo contestó él antes, él dijo que había diferentes formas de ver esto, que el tipo de ingredientes y el tipo de formulación en esos años era diferente que ahora. Tal vez que hay algunas gentes que hablan de resistencia bacteriana y tal vez también el tipo de dietas ha llevado a la genética de los animales que también ha cambiado. Eso es lo que él mencionó. No sé si quiera elaborar un poco más.
Yeah, but that was like pretty much what we saw in that review of literature. So yeah, the benefits were reduced throughout the years, but I personally, I don't think it's like antimicrobial resistant. I think it's more the generic merit of the animals that we are using, and also the diets that we are like including more byproducts and decreasing a little bit the amount of like starch, corn, basically. So that might be the reason that we are seeing like reduction of like the benefits, but we still like can see the benefits of the inclusion of ionophores. Yeah, yeah. Even if it's in the same range, like from 1970s or 80s, we still can see like the benefits. But maybe because we are changing like the diets and we are using like a better our herd, like the genetic is like probably better than in the past. So that is probably the reason, a combination of different diet formulation with more corn byproducts and animals, the genetic method of our animals.
¿Qué opinión tienes tú acerca de la epigenética o la nutrigenómica? Ya ves que últimamente se ha hablado de cómo afecta la nutrición ciertos genes y en relación a lo que estás diciendo, ¿no podría haber alguna relación?
Yeah, that might probably this is a good point, Juan. Unfortunately, we don't have like a strong data set to answer this question yet. But yes, like there's some like research that start looking for this specific point. I think in the next year, maybe we can try to answer this question, but I don't think we have enough information to date to know like how we could change with different diets, changing the expression of different genes, and that could change the performance or whatever in these animals. Yeah, I think it's still like too early to have like an answer for this question.
Excelente, pues creo que ya estamos en el tiempo. A mí me resta nada más agradecer, por un lado, que me hayan invitado a participar, por otro lado, excelente información que nos presenta Vinicius. Y realmente, como lo dijo Paco al inicio, ¿no? Pues muy buenos seminarios para llenarse de ciencia un poquito, y agradezco la participación. Un abrazo, Vinicius. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you, Juan. Thank you, everyone.
Muchas gracias, doctor Juan de Dios. Igualmente, muchas gracias a nuestro ponente, el doctor Vinicius Gouvêa. Les voy a dar rápidamente algunos anuncios antes de que terminemos. Primeramente, bueno, pues recordarles que la grabación de este seminario va a estar disponible en nuestro canal de YouTube, y agradecerle nuevamente a la empresa DSM por tomar este espacio y pues compartirnos toda esta información de gran utilidad para todos. Les dejé ahí en el chat unos enlaces. El primero de ellos es una encuesta de este seminario para que nos ayuden pues dándonos su opinión al respecto. La contestan rapidísimo. Igualmente pues les dejé ahí algunos enlaces para que se vayan registrando nuestros siguientes simposios virtuales. El primero de ellos es el de sostenibilidad, medir para mejorar. Este es el lunes 25 de octubre, la próxima semana a las 10 de la mañana. Ahí tienen el enlace, pueden ir entrando. El que sigue después es en noviembre, el 8 de noviembre, nuevas tendencias en la alimentación de bovinos. Ahí tienen igual la agenda y empieza también a las 10 de la mañana, en día lunes. Y finalmente, el 8 de diciembre, tenemos el simposio En Camino hacia una producción más natural, sostenible, saludable y sostenible, perdón. Este igual es a las 10 de la mañana en lunes. Entonces ya se pueden ir registrando a todos ellos. Igualmente, el martes 16 de noviembre tenemos otro seminario de la industria, esta vez con la empresa Trau Nutrition. Igualmente pueden irse registrando por ahí. Y terminando, ¿no? Tienen ahí también el enlace a nuestro canal de YouTube. Les agradecemos suscribirse para que reciban luego unas notificaciones cuando subimos los videos, ¿no? Pueden revisar la información de seminarios anteriores, seminarios y simposios anteriores y de este que acabamos de tener. Finalmente, pues agradecerles a todos estar aquí con nosotros una vez más y los esperamos entonces en nuestro simposio virtual del día lunes a las 10 de la mañana. Muchas gracias a todos, bonita tarde. Hasta luego, doctor Juan.
Dios, que te vaya muy bien.
Gracias. Hasta luego, Vinicius. Excelente plática.
Thank you, Juan. Thank you, Ana. Thank you, Francisco.
Bye, Vinicius. Thank you very much.
Un placer.